Number 10. Ultimate Doctor Doom. Victor Van Dam of the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610 was caught in the same accident that gave the Fantastic Four their abilities. For Victor, his flesh was changed into an organic metal, his legs became goat-like and his hands gained claws. With his metal body came the power to alter the density and nature of his skin, forming porcupine-like quills that he could even throw at enemies. This Doctor Doom, just like his Prime Earth counterpart, was an intellectual genius and also a powerful sorcerer, showing the ability to summon creatures like the Lovecraftian Svilpogua, which I'm not even going to try and fix my pronunciation of. He also seemed capable of performing Atlantean magic and apparently grew in his magical proficiency since he claimed to be the Sorcerer Supreme of his Earth when facing Jean Grey in All New X-Men Volume 1, number 36 from 2015. Number 9. House of M. In the warped reality of the House of M, Doctor Doom kind of gets everything he wants, minus his mother, and minus world domination, and minus a lot actually. Okay, he doesn't really get anything he wants completely, but he does become really cool, sort of. He allies with Magneto when the human-mutant war erupts, and when the mutants come out on top, Doom took over the kingdom of New Latveria, marrying his childhood sweetheart Valeria. He found a way to combine magic with technology and cosmic rays to empower himself with a liquid metal body that is virtually indestructible and can be stretched and transformed into weapons. He also upgraded his wife with powers to control mystical shadow constructs, and their adopted son with powers similar to the Human Torch. Teaming up with this reality's Ben Grimm, called just IT, they form the Fearsome Four, a strike force used by Magneto to keep other superhumans in line. Number 8. Doom 2099. The Victor Von Doom of the Dark 2099 stories is surprisingly actually the 616 Doom, but transported to the mind of a younger Latvian man. He maintains all of his intellect and inventive genius, and he also gets some upgrades. His body is infused with nanotechnology, which increases his reflexes and strength considerably. But on top of that, Doom wore a sophisticated nuclear-powered adamantium battlesuit, which granted him superhuman strength, contained jets for flight, housed a personal force field, and discharged concussive force blasts. He could also electrify his armor's surface, which is kinda cool. The armor contained a 4-hour air supply and could be sealed for travel into outer space or underwater. His upgraded armor added abilities that allow him to phase, which the original Doom armor could not. The only downside to this variation of Doom is that he is not as adept in the mystical arts, due in part to memory loss. But he is a genius in physics, robotics, cybernetics, genetics, weapons technology, biochemistry, and time travel. And one last little tidbit, he became President of America, so there's that. Number 7. Max Eisenhardt of Earth 8013. In this reality where Charles Xavier had died in his first encounter with Lucifer, Magneto formed his Brotherhood of Evil Mutants using his children Pietro and Wanda alongside Cyclops, Jean Grey, Iceman, Angel, and Beast, who curiously wielded gauntlets that made him some very Wolverine-like claws for some reason, I don't know. These 5 youths were the original X-Men on Earth 616, which makes it really interesting to see them in this strange Magneto-led bad guy team. Together they actually ended up successfully conquering the world, but then again they were unable to prevent Galactus from in turn destroying that world, so... But hey, you win some, you lose some, you know? I don't know. Number 6. What if Magneto ruled all mutants? In this what if story from 1996, Magneto leads mutant kind as they float above Earth in space on a sanctuary Magneto established called Avalon. Magneto had decided to let his mutants rule themselves so that he wouldn't be a dictator to them. Unfortunately, a large group of mutants had divided themselves into 2 warring factions known as the Isolationists, who wanted to move Avalon to another star system, and the Annihilates, who wanted to go the easier route of destroying humanity and just taking the Earth for themselves. Magneto had to stop the 2 factions from fighting when they nearly destroyed Avalon. Later, after the birth of the first child on Avalon, Magneto actually manipulated events in order to unite the 2 warring factions together, but on the outside he acted as though he was done trying to get them to work together. What If number 85 from 1996 is certainly an interesting story, and you should definitely check it out. Number 5. Dr. Juggernaut. Heroes Reborn! Welcome to a world where Tony Stark never built an Iron Man armor, where Thor is a hard-drinking atheist who absolutely despises hammers, where Wakanda is nothing but a myth, and where Captain America was never found in the ice because there were no Avengers to find him. In their place, this world has always been protected by Earth's mightiest heroes, the Squadron Supreme of America. Just like the Justice League, but Marvel. This team does battle with crazy foes, one of which being Dr. Juggernaut. Now if you haven't guessed by now, yes, this is a world where Victor Von Doom took possession of the Gem of Sidorak. And again, yes, this is as completely awesome as you might think it is. His story is one of revenge. He used to be the king of Latveria before that pesky squadron jumped in and turned the government into a democracy with fair elections. Ugh. Doom came in last, and he was eventually banished to the negative zone, but came back with sights set on not just his kingdom, but the whole world. With the powers of Dr. Doom and the Juggernaut, this guy was capable of going up against frickin' Hyperion. He led the Masters of Doom, putting him in charge of crazy powerful villains like Algog, which is Mangog with the powers of Odin, which is just a Black Skull, who is Red Skull plus Venom, and Silver Witch, which is self-explanatory. Oh, and Thanos. Number 4, Doom the Living Planet. The legends go that Dr. Doom of Earth TRN-157, the world of Astonishing Spider-Man and Wolverine, sensing that the end was near, decided to transfer his consciousness into the one thing big enough to contain his absolutely massive ego: a planet. This Doom, the living planet, could travel through space at the speed of light and manipulate matter on a cosmic scale. He also had the means to launch massive planet-wide invasions with an army of Doom bug bots. Now, to be completely open and honest with you, he doesn't last very long in his story. But that's only because he is shot by Wolverine with a weapon that harnesses the entire power of the Phoenix Force and was made for the sole purpose of destroying planets. But the panel where he was floating over New York and bellowing, "Doom hungers." So cool.
Number 3, Allfather Ultron. Ultron just loves a good fusion dance, my friends, especially if it results in horrifying consequences, and in this case, it does. Here, Ultron ends up merged with Odin, taking the Odin Force instead of choosing to merge with Thor. So this is a being who is not only super smart and technologically gifted, but now is also magically gifted as well. Oh boy, that's great. Allfather Ultron hails from the Avengers Ultron Forever story, where in the future Ultimate Ultron appears and ends up defeating the Avengers and then enslaving all of humanity with his own drone army. He then goes on to imprison all of the Asgardians as well with the help of mischief god Loki, and chooses to take the power of Odin for himself, bonding with the Odin Force and therefore becoming, well, the Allfather.
At number 2 is MCU Ultron. This version of Ultron is the most popular, but that doesn't make him any less terrifying than these other versions of himself. In this storyline, Ultron is created by Iron Man, and one of the creepiest things that happens as a result is that Ultron takes on a personality similar to Stark's. But what's even scarier about this one is that he was actually created by Tony Stark to bring peace to the world. And what causes him to go rogue and try and instead do the opposite is that his coding malfunctions and convinces him that humanity is the only thing in his way from reaching this goal. And since the Avengers were in between him and his goal of killing all living things, they too are in his way. Somehow he's able to then create a robot army in a Hydra lab and challenges the Avengers as one of the toughest villains they've ever had to face. I know we're all very familiar with the MCU Ultron, but something about the fact that his coding starts as a directive to save the planet and then shifts into a directive to destroy the planet and the universe just gives me chills, especially since it's due to the notion that we are just so bad that we're the problem. Really makes you think.
Number 1, Infinity Ultron. Possibly one of the scariest iterations of Ultron I've ever seen, comes to us from the cinematic universe, appearing in Marvel's What If, the Disney Plus streaming service animated show. In the episode What If Ultron Won, we learned what would happen if Ultron was not defeated and instead became even more powerful, resulting in the antagonist being a threat to not just his own universe, where most heroes have already been defeated, but the entire multiverse. This version of Ultron not only has the Infinity Stones, but also discovers how to traverse the multiverse, allowing him to threaten the destruction of other worlds. Fortunately, he is, at least temporarily, I don't know if he's gonna stay defeated by the Guardians of the Multiverse, the Watcher's own multiversal team of heroes. but even then, that's a pretty rough fight that happens.
Coming in at number 10, 1602. In this alternate Earth, or alternate timeline, Magneto is known as Enrique, or the Grand Inquisitor. He was born Jewish in a Venice ghetto, but was taken in by a Christian priest and baptized. The Christians later refused to let him be returned to his Jewish family, and being unable to be reunited with this family left him psychologically scarred, which I guess led him directly to become the leader of the Spanish Inquisition somehow? He was ordered to execute the witch breed, or mutants to us in the modern age, but he hid those who could pass off as human. Enrique's only known followers are his children Petros and sister Wanda, who are Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch, in case you didn't make the connection. And his spy in the Vatican is the Toad. Enrique uses his position to further his needs and curry favor with the influential figures, including King James of Scotland. While Enrique is attempting to have Angel killed, the Witchbreed is rescued by Iceman and Cyclops. If you guys haven't read 1602, definitely do. It's written by frickin' Neil Gaiman. Like, come on. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this video, make sure you drop a like. It really helps us out as a channel and we would really appreciate it. It's on to number 9 with Age of Apocalypse Magneto. In the reality of Age of Apocalypse, Magneto leads this world's X-Men after the death of his friend Charles Xavier, at the hands of Xavier's son David, who traveled back in time hoping to kill Magneto. Magneto and the X-Men fight against the forces of this world's Apocalypse, who, without the interference of Xavier, was able to take over North America. Magneto's team is composed not only of the X-Men, but also includes mutants like Sabretooth and other not so good guys. In this timeline, Magneto is married to the mutant Rogue, and together they have a son they named Charles. Magneto and this Charles are later personally captured by Apocalypse himself, though they are rescued by Rogue and the other X-Men, including Nate Gray, who raid Apocalypse's citadel in a desperate final attempt to save all of reality from Macron crystallization. The end fight between Apocalypse and Magneto in this story is so awesome, and Magneto like literally tears the celestial technology out of him. It's just super cool. Number 8, Magneta. On Earth 982, the Age of Heroes happened about 15 years earlier than on Earth 616, meaning most of the events, history, and character history associated with the heroes of Earth 616 also happened 15 years before. As such, a lot of the superheroes of the past, the ones you and I know, have either grown up, grown old, or retired, with new heroes in their place. For Magneto, he doesn't actually show up. Instead, we have a young woman who goes by the name Magneta, and who seems to have all the same powers as Magneto, even dressing similar to him as she considers him her predecessor. She started off as a hero and always spouted the heroic ideologies that Magneto followed, condemning his more negative aspects. But that didn't really seem to matter though, as she eventually went bad anyways and founded the Sisterhood of Mutants as a strike team for mutants against human oppression. Her efforts to recruit a Midtown high school student named Nucleus brought her into conflict with Spider-Girl and the X-People.
Number 7, Humanoid Ultron. At least humanoid in terms of his facial expressions and like his appearance. This Ultron is not actually one that exists in the comics or in the MCU, but is a hypothetical design that was made during the process of developing Ultron's look for the MCU film Age of Ultron. The creepy, very human-like appearance of this face and the expressions is what really messes with me looking at this. I personally think this would have been a much more disturbing design for Ultron on the screen, making him appear even more humanoid than he already did. But then again, they probably didn't do that for the reason of, you know, like not spooking kids too much that were watching the movie. Of course, then again, we also just got Multiverse of Madness, which definitely did not hold too much back when it came to disturbing scenes and characters. So yeah, I guess it's a while later, so it's a different time. All the people that saw Age of Ultron are older now, so they can handle it. I don't know. These designs for Ultron, by the way, come from Phil Saunders, who is a concept artist for Age of Ultron, and also has been one for many other MCU films and projects, including WandaVision.
At number 6, I've put Hank Pym Ultron. In the comics, Ultron is created by none other than entomologist, biochemist, roboticist, engineer, physicist, and scientific adventurer Dr. Henry Hank Pym. But despite all his impressive titles and accomplishments, this scientist has some pretty questionable morals and a pretty messed up past to deal with. And as it works in the real world too, Ultron somehow inherits some of these issues, himself being something of a son to Pym. One of these issues is only characterized as a pretty deeply rooted father complex, where he constantly seems to be searching for Dr. Pym's approval. So instead of trying to please him, which seemed impossible, he just fuses with his creator instead. And in doing so, this super genius scientist gets a huge boost of intellect and, of course, power. And further, he is then able to turn back and forth to and from Dr. Pym's human form to avoid detection in crucial situations, and use his Ant-Man powers to get really small. So this version of Ultron just had so much dynamic in his abilities, which makes him all that much scarier knowing how evil he is. Something about his ability to blend in as a human is the scariest part of the whole thing, because sometimes you wouldn't even know you're speaking to one of the most devious, intelligent, and powerful beings in the universe.
Number 5. Ultron Galactus. While this sounds like it should be one of the scariest points on this list, the bottom line is that Ultron Galactus is actually kind of a hero in this story. In a distant future, Galactus is dead and an even greater villain threatens the universe known as the Unnameable. The Unnameable devours worlds without even a second thought, not bothering to even send words to planets of their arrival. If not stopped, it seems as though the entire universe will be destroyed. Hoping to save the universe, Silver Surfer recruits the Shi'ar and gathers the remains of his former master Galactus, along with some old parts of the villain once known as Ultron, planning on resurrecting Galactus so that the two can defeat the Unnameable together and kind of using parts of Ultron to do so. Unfortunately, even with the fused Ultron Galactus, who is under Silver Surfer's control, it's not enough power. They are forced to recruit other cosmic characters, but even then, victory seems uncertain. This story comes to us from a page of Marvel Universe 2001 Millennial Visions. I love these little short story anthologies. So much fun.
Ultron Phalanx. This version of Ultron comes from the Annihilation Conquest storyline, and he's got himself a full-on army, which gives him a spot on this list without a doubt. After the Avengers think they've finally taken out Ultron, it becomes very clear very soon that he isn't actually dead. Instead, his consciousness travels to another place in the universe called the Babel Spire. In this world, he somehow manages to take over all of its inhabitants, known as the Phalanx. These techno-organic aliens come together under Ultron's reign and form a pretty powerful army. With said army, Ultron invades the Kree Dominion and takes over a bunch of their territory, among other tyrannous acts. It's obviously a teachable lesson to the Avengers that no matter how sure you are that you've killed Ultron, you have to monitor him and his consciousness and keep tabs on his activities, because this villain's ambitions just never seem to cease, for anyone or anything.
Number 3. Ultimate Universe. Everything in the Ultimate Marvel Universe, or Earth 1610, is more extreme for better or for worse. While some fans hate this version of Magneto for being a straight up villain and not the anti-hero the character has become, it is almost impossible to deny that he does show just what Magneto is totally capable of. This version of Magneto is significantly darker and more cynical than the mainstream version, regarding all humans with utter and unwavering disdain and likening them to insects. On several occasions, he has attempted to carry out extreme genocidal plans for the human population using the noticeably larger Brotherhood of Mutants he is in control of. This Magneto has displayed enough power to defeat the Ultimates, including Thor, a literal god, twice. And he was even successfully able to reverse the magnetic poles of the Earth, resulting in the Ultimatum event that was supposed to end the Ultimate Universe, but didn't for some reason, I don't know. Number 2, Brother Mutant. If you are a comic book fan, which I hope you are considering you've made it this far in the video, I highly encourage you to check out the Exiles team if you haven't already. They are a reality hopping team of heroes and sometimes villains that go around trying to fix fractured realities. One such reality that multiple teams of specifically alternate versions of Wolverine have been trying to save would be Earth 127. This reality was one of the many that was accidentally fractured by the explorations of the Timebreakers, and has a few gender-swapped characters including Magneto and his children. On this world, the Scarlet Warlock attempted to transfer the adamantium skeleton of 127's Wolverine into his mother, Magneto. But the Warlock's hex powers inadvertently merged himself, his mother Magneto, his sister Quicksilver, and the mutant Mesmero with Wolverine, Doom, creating an entirely new and extremely powerful entity known as Brother Mutant, who sought to take over the world. And in at number 1 is Magneto from House of M. When the forces of Professor X, the Avengers, and the X-Men arrived to defeat or defend the Scarlet Witch, due to her unstable mind and powers, and the influence of her brother, she caused a white flash to go off and used her powers to change reality. Mutants were no longer the minority, free to use their powers, living as proud mutants. All the mutant heroes were now living their perfect lives. Most of the societal changes in this alternate timeline were directly thanks to the strong and successful leadership of the House of Magnus, meaning Magneto and his children. Magneto took the fight to the USA with his fellow mutants. He brought down the SHIELD helicarrier and fought a final battle against the Sentinels in Central Park, defeating them. The President of the United States was captured, and Magneto and Genosha were now the world's premier superpower, with large parts of the world under his control as king. King Eric Magnus was the most powerful individual in the world, if we don't consider the Scarlet Witch, who literally created it all. Instead of mutant oppression, humans were now being oppressed and hunted by alternate versions of Sentinels. Heroes like Luke Cage, Hawkeye, and more tried to rise up and defend the defenseless as a group called the Human Resistance Movement.
At number 10, we have Ultron 59. Coming from the Last Avengers storyline, this version of Ultron is probably one of the scariest looking versions of Ultron on the list. With a set of physical features that more so resemble those of a human, this alternate version of Ultron just looks like he's straight out of a nightmare to me. And he means business. And he gets it done too. On Earth 9511 is where his story takes place, and he very nearly gets the upper hand on the Avengers. He actually kills Jesse Wingfoot and then sends forth a horde of Ultrons to fight the heroes for him. As you can imagine, this poses a huge threat to the Avengers, but luckily, Vision is finally able to take out this Ultron by merging with him. It's a pretty harrowing battle, and Ultron 59 is taken out of the fight, for good, until a new writer decides that isn't the case in the future. But for now, we can all sleep at night knowing that human-looking Ultron 59 is not around anymore, and he can't hurt you.
Number 9, Ultron Extreme. Okay, so Ultron Extreme actually only made a few appearances, I believe, in Avengers Next, which takes place in the MC2 universe, the alternate Earth of 982, the same home reality as Spider-Girl / now Spider-Woman, aka Mayday Parker, Spider-Man and MJ's daughter. Despite having only a few appearances though, I just love the intimidating design for Ultron Extreme, who looks like a super beefy version of Ultron to me, and a super spiky version too. Ultron if he were like a brick wall. His powers are believed to be on a similar level to that of his main continuity, but his intimidating appearance inspired me to put him as one of the lower but still scary points on our list. While Ultron Extreme was seemingly defeated in a single issue, he was pretty powerful and was only seemingly permitted to be defeated as part of a larger plot. So they just got lucky with that one, I think.
Ultimate Ultron. This version of Ultron is just plain terrifying in how he looks, but also in what he's done during his run. And just simply the fact that Ultimate Ultron, or Ultron 6, is a version of the villain that is starting to gather valuable information on how to take down the Avengers once and for all. So he does just that. Well, not once and for all, obviously, but he is the first Ultron to successfully take them down. The way he does it is by taking over Vision and turning his skeleton into adamantium. This allows him to take on a nearly indestructible form and gain a huge advantage in battle. He's also unique in that he can actually shapeshift by manipulating his molecules, which is pretty impressive considering this is unheard of in the more modern iterations of this villain. But even though he's an older version of Ultron, he still strikes me as a little scarier than some of the others. The art just looks more menacing back then, in some ways.
Number 7. Infamous Iron Man. After the events of Secret Wars and reality being brought back to normal, Victor Von Doom was unsatisfied with his life, and finding that he couldn't find satisfaction serving himself, even as God Emperor, he decided to switch his morality and try and serve and help others. He took on a bit of a mentor in Tony Stark, whom he had always respected, and when Tony Stark was put into a coma, Doom decided to take his place as the infamous Iron Man, which was a great reason to give us Dr. Doom in a highly advanced suit of Iron Man's Model Prime Mark 51 armor. While also being the coolest looking Iron Man ever, the armor was retrofitted into Doom's style and was used alongside his magical abilities. So, Iron Man with Doom's magic is basically what we have here. To make things even better, Doom's intellect and sorcery were near their peaks during this period in time, so he is truly an incredibly powerful hero, even if he does kinda go back to his old ways eventually. Number 6. Sorcerer Supreme. On Earth 938, the setting of the 1989 What If issue 52, when Doom failed to rescue his mother's soul from Mephisto, he sought out the Ancient One to learn and train in the mystic arts and be able to finally save her. Now, during the time of his training, he becomes extremely powerful, reaching a level of mystical magical power that made him worthy of being Sorcerer Supreme, while also still being a technological genius and master schemer. He, alongside the Ancient One, freed his mother from Mephisto at the cost of the Ancient One's life. When Mordo tried to take out Doom, Doom implanted a microscopic device inside Mordo's head that would detonate if Mordo ever crossed him again. When Stephen Strange came to seek help from the Ancient One for his damaged hands, Doom just cut them off and replaced them with robotic ones. And he eventually banished the Dread Dormammu from Earth after he invaded. That last feat did fatally wound the new Sorcerer Supreme though, but using his Doombots, he kidnapped Dr. Stephen Strange and used his own personality and memory to overwrite Strange's, turning Strange into a copy of Doom, ensuring his legacy would live on and he could continue to be the Sorcerer Supreme in a new body for basically ever. Number 5. Age of X. Max Eisenhart from Earth 11326 proved to be a master strategist and a radical leader in a fight against the human race. He was a key figure in organizing resistance movements, protests, and he was the leader of both the Brotherhood and the Acolytes. He also supplied the Mutant Liberation Front with intel and logistical support. Now, similar to his Ultimate Universe counterpart, he once attempted to reverse the Earth's magnetic poles, and he would have succeeded if it hadn't been for Tony Stark and Reed Richards, who created technology that thwarted his plans and prevented any further attempts. One of his biggest feats though would be the creation of Fortress X. Magneto, using his powers, literally stole several skyscrapers from New York City and put them together to create a mutant safe haven. It was both a show of force and a mutant rallying cry. Now, after the incursions, this version of Magneto would actually go on to play a key role in the Battleworld Red Skull Volume 2 storyline. Definitely a good read there, check it out. Number 4. Heroes Reborn. Heroes Reborn Magneto and the Mutant Force Volume 1 on Earth TRN 852 gives us a version of Magneto who set up yet another mutant sanctuary in the form of Island M, and founded and led a team known as the Mutant Force consisting of Frenzy, Jubilee, Rogue, Sabra, Mr. 1, and Mr. 2, including himself. During a mutant protest against mutant registration, a fight broke out with the Squadron Supreme of America, who are like a Marvel's Comics Justice League, if that makes sense. During the fight, Power Princess, who was basically Wonder Woman, killed Professor X and paralyzed Magneto after hitting him in the spine. Magneto, affected by the passing of Xavier, and who kind of took on his whole wheelchair thing, vowed to aid mutants against human oppression. This Magneto variation actually gets his body taken over by Cassandra Nova in a crazy twist of events, and honestly, the whole story is a wild ride from start to finish. Number 3. Otto Werner von Strange. In Devil's Reign Superior 4, we see one of the most powerful versions of Doctor Doom. And the funny thing is, he is combined with one of the villains you wouldn't think to be all that powerful. This Doctor Doom is combined with Dr. Octopus. So that's an interesting combo, but he's also fused together with Doctor Strange. There are a lot of doctors here. Yes. This Doom from Earth 8968 has become Sorcerer Supreme, and he is able to subdue Wolverine, Ghost Rider, Hulk, and regular versions of Doc Ock. He is easily able to best 3 of the strongest Marvel heroes at the same time. He has total command of the forces of magic and better control over his mechanical arms than the original Otto does. He can manipulate the multiverse, communicating and casting spells over different realities, and can even pull the other Ottos to his own Earth with a simple gesture. By his own volition, he has liquefied Shumagorath, had Dormammu grovel at his feet, and burned Null to ashes. These are all cosmic level threats that many times got close to destroying Earth 616 and its universe. Number 2. End of Time Doom. Earth 14412 is home to a Doctor Doom who is more than just a Sorcerer Supreme. He is the Fist of Iron, the Starbrand Supreme, the Master of Mystic Vengeance. He is the End of Time Doom. He has powered himself up with the Starbrand, Iron Fist, the Eye of Agamotto and Cloak of Levitation, and a Spirit of Vengeance. In this reality, King Loki had destroyed all of humanity, with Doom being one of the few survivors. King Thor and his 3 daughters, the goddesses of thunder, restored life to the earth, and Doom came to conquer it. Naturally. He completely stomped the 3 granddaughters of old King Thor, who themselves were powerful enough to destroy Omnipotent City. And he was only stopped when old King Thor, who wielded the Odin Force, or more specifically the Thor Force, was also empowered by the Phoenix Force. Also, this Doom looked incredibly cool, but he was still not as powerful as the number 1 spot. Number 1. God Emperor Doom. During the events of the incursions that would lead to the most recent Secret Wars event, Victor Von Doom, with the help of Molecule Man, gains the powers of all the Beyonders, a race of beings from beyond the multiverse responsible for basically everything there is, and powerful enough to destroy Marvel's various cosmic entities, so that he could forge the remnants of the multiverse together into Battleworld and rule it as God Emperor Doom. While empowered by Molecule Man, God Emperor Doom had the powers of reality warping, matter manipulation, energy manipulation, plus all the super enhancements and his former powers. But just listing his powers isn't going to suffice. It's his feats that truly prove his power. Other than forming Battleworld or Earth 15513, God Emperor Doom has turned Johnny Storm into the son of Battleworld. He has created a new and improved Eye of Agamotto for Doctor Strange, he's completely disintegrated Doctor Strange, ripped Thanos' spine from his body and turned him to ash, de-lifed the Phoenix Force Cyclops, defeated Black Panther, who was wielding the Infinity Gauntlet, created the hammers of his Thor core, and even gave the Thors their power. God Emperor Doom was the 3rd most powerful being in the entire Marvel multiverse, only being surpassed by Molecule Man and the one above all.
Number 10. Paul Sloan. Paul Sloan was the 3rd villain to take up the mantle Two-Face. On Earth 2, he took up the mantle after being hired as an actor to play Two-Face, aka Harvey Kent/Dent, in an upcoming film. While on set and shooting the acid disfigurement scene, the prop acid was swapped for real acid. As a result, Paul also became disfigured and turned to a life of crime. It's explained that because Paul was so invested in his role, he got caught up after becoming disfigured and actually believed that he was really the real Two-Face. Batman, however, manages to get him to agree to see a surgeon by swapping out his lucky coin with his own trick coin that always falls on its one edge and can never fall flat. And he did it all apparently while grappling, which is pretty impressive, Batman. I don't know how you grapple with somebody and also switch out a coin, but yeah. Number 9. Arkham. In the Arkham video game series, Two-Face is voiced by the talented Troy Baker, who is known for voicing multiple different characters throughout the series, including many Robins such as Tim Drake, Dick Grayson, and Jason Todd. In the Arkham series, we get to fight against Two-Face as Batman after he thwarts Catwoman's attempted heist and also decides to kidnap her and put her on trial. After we defeat Two-Face, he is left dangling above a vat of acid. This version of the character was reportedly disfigured by acid thrown by Carmine Falcone instead of Sal Maroni. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you love this list and you want more lists like it, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Charlatan. Charlatan is technically an alternate of an alternate, being that he is the alternate version of Earth 2 Paul Sloan, who's an alternate version of Two-Face. You with me? This is the New Earth version of that character who becomes an alternate version of Two-Face when he is hired by a bunch of other villains to act as Two-Face in one of their schemes. Now the reason they need a Two-Face replacement, well, that's because the real Two-Face flipped his coin, and based on the result he decided to not participate this time. When Two-Face hears about his new imposter though, who also at one point doesn't even flip his coin before killing a security guard, he is not very impressed. He ends up taking Paul Sloan and dipping him in a vat of acid to permanently disfigure him. After that, Scarecrow utilized Paul as a test subject, experimenting on him until he was 100% fearless, without any fear. I mean, 100% fearless just sounds like something you wear on a t-shirt, but this is like less fear. 100% free of fear. You know what I mean? Paul then took up the mantle Charlatan and became a villain all his own, but admittedly one who started out as an alternate version of Two-Face in the New Earth continuity. So, he's still at his own name, but still kinda Two-Facey, you know what I mean? Although, he doesn't flip a coin or anything like that, I'm pretty sure, so there's that. Number 7, Young Justice. This alternate version of Ivy is definitely a villain, being a member of the Injustice League. She not only has her now typical chlorokinesis powers, but has also worked to create even more monstrous plants, enhancing them with various types of venom, tech, radiation, and magic, including even Joker venom. While Poison Ivy is a force to be reckoned with in this reality, she does ultimately get defeated by Young Justice. But hey, they're the main team of the animated series, and villains are basically designed to lose to heroes, especially if it's a hero-centric story. One of the things I really love about Ivy in the animated series Young Justice is her look. She has green markings on her face and her arms that look like vines almost on her green-hued skin. Number 6, Earth 43. One of the most despicable versions of Poison Ivy. This version hails from the home reality of the Red Rain series, the reality where Batman gets transformed into a vampire. Here, Poison Ivy is a serial killer who uses her powers to seduce men, making them want her desperately before she kills them with a single toxic kiss. Vampire Batman, however, quickly puts an end to Ivy. Here she has chlorokinesis as well, but his very presence causes harm to her plants, killing them. Despite her abilities, he defeats her easily enough by biting into her neck and decapitating her afterwards, you know, to make sure that she doesn't turn into a vampire. This version of Ivy both first appears and dies in Batman Crimson Mist. Number 5, Arkham Game. In the Arkham video game universe, Ivy becomes a somewhat redeemed figure. Initially, she is a villain, one of the criminals locked up in Arkham Asylum who ends up breaking free. But although she seems to identify more with nature than humanity, she still ends up helping to save Gotham in the end, even though she recently plotted the city's demise herself. Poison Ivy here is toxic to most people thanks to some accidental mad science, which caused her to turn into a plant-human hybrid. Instead of blood pumping through her veins, Ivy has chlorophyll. She also has pheromone powers, which here make her a master of seduction. Poison Ivy teams up with Batman in the end in this reality to help him defeat Scarecrow's fear toxin, even sacrificing herself to Number 4, New Earth. Similar to her animated counterpart, Poison Ivy in the previous continuity of New Earth was not as powerful as the current version of her that we have in the comics. At least, you know, not initially. Originally, her abilities were more based in the realm of science and her knowledge, but following the events of Crisis on Infinite Earths, she gained more superpower-based abilities. Her chlorokinesis in the New Earth continuity seems to be somewhat mystical in origin post-Crisis, actually being tied to the green, which is the same force that grants the powerhouse of Swamp Thing his powers. She also ends up developing pheromone control that allows her to seduce not just men, but people of all genders. She can control her green-hued skin, reducing its pigmentation, allowing her to move through a crowd unnoticed, and she can absorb the toxins of animals and plants to make her touch more deadly. Number 3, DCAU. Harvey Dent in the DC animated universe is voiced by Richard Mall. Here the character is the best friend of Bruce Wayne, and we also see him early on become a victim of Poison Ivy as she attempted to seduce him in her civilian identity as Pamela Isley, while really seeking to poison him as part of a revenge plot for the near extinction of the wild thorny rose plant. Harvey here, before he even becomes Two-Face, also is plagued by a dissociative identity disorder, with another more rage-filled and dangerous persona lurking deep within him that is referred to as Big Bad Harv. Big Bad Harv surfacing can actually result in blackouts for Harvey where he doesn't really remember what happened, but also it appears so rarely that it's never really been considered a huge problem for him, at least in the beginning. Obviously. Once he's Two-Face, might be a problem. Number 2, Harvey Kent. Harvey Kent is one of the alternate versions of Two-Face, who comes to us from Earth number 2. This version of Harvey, although the actual original appearance of the character in Detective Comics issue 66 in 1942, was actually wiped away from main continuity with the Crisis on Infinite Earths event. Harvey Kent was also sometimes known as Harvey Dent, and his backstory is similar to his main continuity counterparts. He was a great criminal lawyer who had acid basically thrown on him by Sal Maroni. However, a few times Batman actually managed to get Two-Face to turn back to the side of good, and at one point he even has plastic surgery which allows him to resume his old life, since his criminal desires were pretty much directly linked to his appearance and happened as well as a result of his love, Gilda, leaving him because of his disfigurement. Don't worry, he and Gilda do get married, although I feel like if someone left me because I got disfigured, I probably wouldn't want to get back with that person. I'd be like, wow, that's kind of shallow, but okay. I mean, I like things that look nice too, but can you see beyond my disfigurement to the beauty inside? Apparently Gilda could not. Number 1, The Dark Knight. Aaron Eckhart was the actor who played hotshot district attorney Harvey Dent in Chris Nolan's Dark Knight film. After being disfigured in an explosion that kills his love, Rachel, Harvey is driven to madness and a life of chance-based crime by the Joker after he pays him a visit at the hospital, and basically preaches to Harvey about chaos. We see a man who goes from making his own luck with a two-headed coin that he often flips for show when it comes to making decisions, to a man who lets fate decide, with him now flipping his two-headed coin that is burnt on one side to help him figure out whether he should do something good or something bad. All in all, it's a pretty neat depiction of the character, and Aaron Eckhart as Harvey Dent and Harvey's arc in this story is a part of what makes the Dark Knight film so good. I know we all talk about the Joker a lot, but Two-Face is also really good in this movie. Also, Aaron Eckhart, I need to watch more movies with you. I feel like I haven't seen you in forever. How are you? Are you good? What are you up to? Actually, I did check Aaron Eckhart's IMDb when I was writing this, because I was like, what? How have I not seen this person in so long? And he is still working quite a bit, so I just need to go back and watch some things with Aaron Eckhart in it. There you go.
In at 10, Hyena. Hyena, first introduced in Legends of the Dark Claw #1 from 1996, is a combination of DC's The Joker and Marvel's Sabretooth. He is the archenemy of Darkclaw, a combination of DC's Batman and Marvel's Wolverine. His real name is Creed Harley Quinn. The Canadian government initiated the Weapon X project. Logan and Quinn of the RCAF were both accepted as candidates for the project, along with 4 other volunteers. Logan's latent Metamutant healing factor kicks in, which allows him to survive the adamantium crafting process, and Creed survives as well, but becomes a remorseless killing machine, exactly what the project was hoping for. Creed's sanity does not fare as well, and he eventually goes rogue, because of course he's going to. And Indestructible, known as Adamantium, was also bonded to Creed's skeleton as well as Logan's, and he was given claws made of the same substance. Unlike Darkclaw, however, Creed was physically deformed as a result of the experiment and went insane. Project X also triggered Metamutant abilities in Creed, who became known as Hyena. Hyena, also known as the Cackling Canine, will not stop his maniacal grinning until his arch-nemesis Darkclaw is destroyed. He also has a gang called the Pack, which is actually kinda cute, but still terrifying. And at 9, Martha Wayne. When Barry Allen altered the timeline so that his mother lived, a lot changed, along with Martha Wayne. She had initially been the mother to Bruce Wayne, who would have become Batman when she was killed in the alleyway by Joe Chill, but Barry's mom surviving somehow resulted in her and her husband, Thomas Wayne, surviving Joe Chill's fateful ambush, but their son dying as a result. Butterfly effect, I guess. This ultimately broke her, driving her completely insane from grief and having her adopt the identity of the Joker, as well as committing various crimes in Gotham, also resulting in Thomas becoming a vigilante known as Batman in an attempt to stop her. By the time of the Flashpoint Saga, she had kidnapped the twin sons of Harvey Dent without leaving a ransom note, and then, at her hideout in Wayne Manor, manipulated Commissioner Gordon into shooting the daughter by dressing her up in a Joker outfit, and then murdered the Commissioner. Eventually, Batman arrived, and she had proceeded to bludgeon her former husband with a hammer, an action that Batman willingly endured for a chance at getting a glimpse of the remaining psyche of his former wife. Ultimately, he managed to temporarily get through to her and revealed that they may have a chance of actually undoing the events that happened, although it may result in her deaths. She accepted though, because she wanted her son to live, but apparently not become Batman. And at 8, Suicide Squad. The Joker is an infamously extreme and formidable psychopathic crime lord in Gotham City in this movie, being at the very top of the city's criminal underworld, greatly feared by all those other crime bosses and criminals. Though he is devoid of empathy or pity for anybody taking part in his wicked schemes, either by intimidation or fraud, the Joker used to adore his on-again, off-again girlfriend and partner in crime Harley Quinn, doing his utmost to rescue her from Task Force X and the clutches of Amanda Waller, with eventual success. I mean, like, he was in the movie for like 5 minutes total, but like, it's better than nothing, right? For unknown reasons though, he later broke up with Harley, leaving her on her own and the target of many of his enemies. This version from the DCEU was certainly a darker and more brutal Joker than what we've been seeing in the comics now, not relying on Batman and being more willing to kill like he was in the golden age of comics, much along the lines of the 3 Joker revelation from the Mobius chair, since this version also killed Robin in the DCEU prior to the events of the movie. However, some also believe that the Joker is a mentally unstable version of Robin, which could be revealed to be true, but I don't know if they're actually going to reveal it and just let it be a theory. And yes, I was doing this to show the mask multiple times.
Number 7. Telltale Two-Face. In the Telltale games, Two-Face is running to become the new mayor of Gotham and is good friends with Bruce Wayne, relying on his friend's influential support to help him get elected so that Harvey can clean up Gotham. However, in the end, Harvey Dent is turned into a villain after being injected with a substance by the children of Arkham. This causes Harvey to become mentally unwell, developing a secondary persona that eventually takes over, known as Two-Face. I mean, I think we all saw that one coming. He may also become scarred in the game depending on the player's choices made as Batman, which of course makes his whole dissociative identity disorder worse and helps it to progress a lot faster. The cool thing about the Telltale games is when it comes to characters like Two-Face, it kind of plays on your knowledge of Batman lore and kind of tries to use it against you in fun ways with unsuspecting twists. So you might be like, well, if he doesn't get scarred, can he become Two-Face? Harvey Dent's always going to become Two-Face. I think that's just inevitable, sadly. Number 6. Wilkins. Wilkins was Harvey Kent's butler, the original Two-Face of Earth 2, and was the second person to take up the mantle of Two-Face. He decided to don makeup and impersonate his employer, committing crimes, but would be apprehended and revealed as an imposter by Batman and Robin. Back in the day, apparently almost everybody wanted to be Two-Face for some reason. There were a lot of imposters. I'm not really sure why. I guess there were just a few times when Harvey Kent wasn't using the persona, because he does get better a few times. Also, if you are thinking I should be saying Harvey Dent, if you've been listening to this whole list and you're like, isn't it Harvey Dent? Isn't it Harvey Dent? Harvey Dent is the main continuity version that we have now, and Harvey Kent was also known by that alias. He was known as Harvey Dent 2 sometimes, but his real name was Harvey Kent, not Dent, initially. Earth 2, friends.
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Erica Manson, aka Marionette. She made her comic book debut just 2 years ago in Doomsday Clock issue 1. Her and her father moved to the United States and opened up a puppet shop across the street from Maze Glass, which eventually led her to meet Marcos Maze, who would soon become her husband, but I'll get into that a little bit later. They started, of course, as best friends, while Marco's stepfather thought that she was a bad influence. So Marco ended up saving Erica from some bullies, and Erica's father committed suicide after corrupt police officers were extorting money out of him at his puppet shop. Now, of course, this already sounds like a villain origin story, but it gets worse. So Erica ended up getting payback on the policeman while, of course, becoming the alternate persona, Marionette, with her trusty lover sidekick, Mime, aka Marcos Maze, who I mentioned earlier. I love this duo, honestly. The vibe reminds me of from Baby Driver, where you have Buddy and Darling. A lot of love and violence, just a hot mix. And before we head over to number 9, guys, if you could just give this video a thumbs up and like this video, it goes a long way over here at the studio. You guys rock, thank you. Now back to some more villains. And number 9, the Underbroker, not to be confused with the Underminer from Incredibles. So Harlan Graves, aka the Underbroker, is a businessman and lawyer located in, of course, Gotham City, who runs a bank for criminals. The Underbroker, of course, wears a fancy suit and a mask. I mean, he looks ready to go to the club, and he also looks ready to crunch some numbers. Love the red and black combo. Slick. He's a broker for criminals, so he would help them store cash in hedge funds. And he's actually so good at his job that the Caped Crusader doesn't even know about his secret organization he calls the Underbrokerage. Great name. He actually helped Catwoman transfer Batman's money to her account, but it was later revealed that he was just getting the account for the Joker. Super smart, super evil, and super handsome. Gotta love it. He made his debut in Batman Volume 3, issue 92. So if you want to check him out for yourself, you know where to look. And number 8, Barbados, also referred to as the Bat God, not Rap God. And he resides in the Dark Multiverse. So, the World Forger, of course, was set to watch over the vast universes, and while some of them held up, there are just some worlds that were just naturally unstable. So, what next? Well, they send a dragon named Barbados to destroy it. That way the energy can then return to the Forge. Now, sometimes you like your job a little bit too much, and this was the case for the Bat God. See, he ended up killing his master and then had a real taste for destruction, thus corrupting the Forge of Worlds. So now, with Barbados not destroying these worlds and sending that energy back, these worlds ended up becoming part of the Dark Universe. His journey begins with Dark Days, the Casting, issue 1.
Number 7, Gambit. Gambit technically started out as a villain. He was a con man and thief, but he did, eventually become a hero. He's one of the most famous and most popular, of the X-Men. He has been a part of multiple events and stories where he saved the world. But at one point he did go back to being evil. Not entirely his fault though. It was kind of, for Apocalypse, which you'll be hearing about more as this list goes on. He became one of Apocalypse's 4 horsemen and tried to kill his friends. He didn't stay that way forever, and he rejoined the team later on and has continued to be a crucial part of the team going forward. Number 6, Iceman. In the Age of Apocalypse universe, Bobby Drake, aka Iceman, is not the one we know and love. In the original universe, he's, a nice guy that you could just rely on. He's a crucial part of the X-Men and has saved hundreds of people. But that's not the case in the Apocalypse timeline. This Bobby ends up turning against his team, to the point where he even reveals the location of the X-Men's super secret underwater base to Wolverine, who was also working for Apocalypse at the time. Not cool, Bobby. Not cool. Although he didn't really get away with it. Later on, he ended up being killed by Nightcrawler. So, Number 5, Namor. Namor has a very interesting relationship with people who live on land. And by interesting, I mean it's pretty rocky. He usually is not a fan of them, although he has worked with them, before, and even allowed the X-Men to operate in the ocean. But that hasn't always been the case. He has consistently let his hatred of the land cloud his judgment, to the point where he has had multiple fights with not only just the X-Men, but the Avengers. He also has a lot of beef with Tony Stark, aka Iron Man. The two have had so many fights that I have lost count. Number 4, Cyclops. Usually Scott Summers is a stand-up guy, known as one of the most famous leaders of the X-Men. And when you think of him, evil is not really a word that would come to mind. But it has happened to Scott before. It started during the Schism storyline, where his leadership skills were questioned. He began sending out young mutants on assassination missions, which is kind of weird. And then his leadership, was obviously questioned, leading to a massive brawl with none other than Wolverine. This whole arc led into the Avengers vs. X-Men storyline. In Avengers vs. X-Men, he ended up becoming possessed by the Phoenix Force and he killed Charles Xavier. Of course, that wasn't entirely his fault, since, he couldn't really control it.
Number 3, Gotham Girl, aka Claire Clover. She made her debut in DCU Rebirth issue 1 in 2016. Her and her brother Hank both traded in years of their lives for superpowers. So they can either live 2 years at Superman's level, or live a few hours with godlike levels, which is really interesting. If you had this power, which way would you go? Let us know in the comments, because I'm curious. So Batman ended up taking Claire and Hank under his wing, but unfortunately, Psycho Pirate's mind manipulation ended up getting the better of him. Hank ended up using all of his life force just to defeat the Justice League. After his death, Claire wasn't doing too well. Batman even told her his real identity and how he sometimes likes to talk to his dead mom as well. How lovely, what a nice little bonding moment. Now, by the name of this list, you won't be too shocked to hear that she had also been secretly working with Bane to break Batman on a psychological level. Not cool. And number 2, the Court of Owls. I mentioned them earlier, so I figured since they're going to be in the new Robert Pattinson Batman flick coming out in 2022, they're worth a bigger mention. So since the New 52, the Court of Owls have picked up steam. Created by Scott Snyder, this new secret society looks as cool as they are. They're an ancient group that has been secretly controlling Gotham for a while. Like a while. They even go back to some early Bruce Wayne days, hence them being part of the Matt Reeves Batman plot coming up. Their top assassin, of course, being the guy I mentioned earlier, Talon. So he ended up attacking him, and then Bruce decided to do some detective work, discovering the secret society. So he finds out that the Court of Owls actually has secret headquarters in every building made by the Wayne Trust. Sneaky, sneaky. Gotta love secret cults. And finally, number 1, Mr. Bloom. One of the coolest looking guys on this list, Mr. Bloom made his debut in 2015 in Batman Volume 2, issue 43. He began his journey by stealing high-tech seeds. Yep, you heard me, I said seeds. Makes sense why he's got the flower on his face. It goes well with the terrifying Slender Man look. I wonder what it smells like. Probably death or daffodils, one of the two. So after he took these super seeds, he got some superpowers, super strength, elasticity, hence the lankiness, and he can project flames and ice from his hands. Pretty neat. So he decides to give these seeds to a select few who desire superpowers. The only cost? Their life. I think next year for Halloween, I'm gonna go as Mr. Bloom. Either him or Orlando Bloom. One of the Blooms for sure, I'm just not sure which one, you know?
Number 10, L'Oreal. Not to be confused with L'Oreal, which is a brand. Just to be clear. L'Oreal is the sister of Captain Marvel, who first appeared in issue 18 of the current Captain Marvel series, which started back in 2019. She was genetically bred by Kree scientists who created her to be a powerful warrior using the DNA of 2 accomplished Kree warriors who came before her, one of which was Carol Danvers' mother, Mari-El. That makes L'Oreal Carol's full Kree half-sister. Carol was working as an accuser when she first ran into L'Oreal, and was tasked with apprehending and executing her, as she was believed to be the Kree responsible for a large massacre. Carol learned of L'Oreal's parentage and believed her to be innocent, so instead spirited her away until she could locate the person who was truly responsible for the massacre. After the events of Empire, where the two sisters fought side by side, L'Oreal ended up becoming Emperor Hulkling's new accuser, taking Carol's place. Also, L'Oreal, fun fact, is really funny, and if you get to read her as Emperor Hulkling's accuser, you'll see what I'm talking about. Number 9, Katie Chen from the MCU. Katie, or Ruin Chen, is probably one of my favorite new characters in the MCU, if not just my full-on favorite now, I think. Katie is the best friend of Sean and grew up with him, but later learns that her friend Sean has a complicated past that he's been running from for basically years. And in fact, Sean's given name was never actually Sean, but instead Shang-Chi. Katie might not have superpowers, but she comes with a can-do attitude no matter the odds. We also learn that despite the fact that Katie works as a valet alongside Sean, that she actually graduated from Berkeley, but isn't really doing much with her college degree. Katie loves driving fast and karaoke, a woman after my own heart. Number 8, Werewolf by Night. The new Werewolf by Night is known as Jake Gomez. He made his first appearance in the newest Werewolf by Night series in issue number 1. Jake discovers as a teenager that he can transform into a wolf during the night, no full moon necessary. Jake ends up wrestling with his werewolf form, attempting to use it to do some good for his people while struggling to be in full control of himself while transformed. Jake is supported by his sister Molly, who helps him by using music, creating playlists to help soothe him, allowing him to gain more control, and his grandmother.
And coming in at number 7, Volthoom, Earth 15. Making his first appearance in Green Lantern Annual Volume 5, Issue 1 back in 2012, also known as the First Lantern. So like I said, he's from the future on Earth 15 in the year 3079, and after his world was on the brink of destruction, him and his mother used the newly discovered emotional electromagnetic spectrum, which is a multiversal force powered by all life in the multiverse. Then they used this power to create the Travel Lantern, and then Volthoom left to find safety while his mother stayed behind and unfortunately, in superhero fashion, died by being crushed by a building right as he left. So he traveled for weeks through space and time in desperate hopes to find something to save his home world. So he goes to Earth 17 and uses the spectrum to resurrect plant life. Cool, not much more to do here, let's go next. He tries Earth 47. Then they use the spectrum to create nice music. Cool. And next he went to Earth 3, where he met a sorcerer named Mordu, in which he creates a power ring out of a piece of his soul. And that ring, of course, being called the Ring of Volthoom. He finally found Earth 0, where he acted as the law and order. Eventually Volthoom's mind was corrupted from the spectrum, and he becomes insane and tries to kill the Malthusians, who had created a great heart battery beforehand. Not cool, Volthoom. More like not cool Tomb. Nah, I tried. And number 6, Daniel West, Reverse Flash. Making his first appearance in the Flash Volume 40, Issue 0, Daniel West is a classic speedster. His costume is the first thing you notice when looking at this version of the Reverse Flash. His suit is made partially from the monorail that he crashed into, so it acts like an armor around him, which is super cool looking. It was merged to him. So after an accident where you get super speed, becoming a supervillain isn't too hard of a lane to slip into, especially when your mother dies while giving birth to you and your father is an aggressive alcoholic. Yeah, Daniel's upbringing is super tragic, so he uses the Speed Force in attempts to go back in time and prevent this from happening at all costs. So if anybody has to die in the meantime, so be it. His goal is to take out other speedsters and use their Speed Force to help him achieve his goal. Sad times indeed.
Number 5. Jessica Dent. Jessica Dent is the twin sister of Harvey Dent from Batman Earth 1. After Harvey Dent dies in this reality in a riot, Jessica develops a dissociative identity disorder, creating a new, more aggressive and violent persona meant to be a stand-in by her mind for Harvey. This persona, in fact, goes by the name of Harvey Dent. Jessica initially worked with her brother and with Bruce Wayne, her close friend, to put a stop to the Penguin and his criminal empire. She would go on to become the mayor of Gotham after the Penguin was defeated, but would lose her sanity and become a villain following the death of her brother. Jessica, of course, never explicitly goes by the name Two-Face, but it is clear from her character direction that she's meant to be a version of Two-Face in this reality. Batman Forever. Tommy Lee Jones plays the very colorful and extravagant Two-Face in Batman Forever. I always forget too that it's Tommy Lee Jones. What a character. I personally love him as Two-Face. In Batman Forever, Two-Face is known for having sort of a split personality disorder or a dissociative identity disorder. There's his good side and his bad side, and each has their own distinct style and even their own romantic partner, with Two-Face being shown as having two very different girlfriends. The reason he turns to his coin to make decisions in this reality is because he believes that acting from emotion actually betrays true justice. Better to leave it up to the fates to decide how to act and which version of him gets to be in control. However, his obsession with the coin flip and chance also ends up being kind of his downfall here. Batman tosses up multiple coins during Harvey's coin toss, and in his confusion as he tries to find his own coin in mid-air, Harvey plummets to his death. So there you go. You can't, as a villain, get too obsessed with your trope. If that happens, it's all downhill from there. Or ego. I would say those are the two things you gotta watch out for if you want to be a supervillain.
And at 3, a serious house. In the world of Arkham Asylum, a serious house on a serious Earth, the inmates of Arkham Asylum have taken over and seized control of the staff. They're willing to release the hostages, but only if their one demand is met. Batman must be turned over to them and become one of their own. Commissioner Gordon informs Batman that the patients of Arkham Asylum have taken over the building and will kill the staff unless Batman agrees to meet with them, and the patients are of course led by the Joker, who kills a guard to spur Batman to obey his wishes. Two-Face meanwhile has degenerated even further into madness, and Batman is forced into a game of hide and seek, and told he has 1 hour to make his way through the maze-like corridors of Arkham and find a way out before his old foes are sent after him. Yep, yeah. The fact that Joker is just leading a whole gang of prisoners who have taken over Arkham is absolutely insane, and then the art style of this comic makes it one of the freakiest depictions of the Joker to date. Like, you've been seeing it, it's nuts. Penultimately, in at number 2, The Batman Who Laughs. The story of Batman of Earth 22 was not much different from that of any other version of the Caped Crusader. When he was a boy, Bruce Wayne watched his parents get murdered in an alley, vowing vengeance against crime. So he trained for years and became the hero Batman, fighting supervillains in Gotham City. Everything went sideways though when Joker started a killing spree across Gotham. The clown had discovered that he was dying from the same chemicals that had turned him into what he was, and wanted to make everyone die with him. He killed all of Batman's enemies, including the Penguin, Catwoman, Killer Croc, the Ventriloquist, a lot. Joker also killed Commissioner Gordon, who accidentally sprung an acid trap on his notebook and it melted his face off. After bombing a hospital and recreating the scene of Bruce's parents killing in front of him multiple times, Batman lost control and broke the Joker's neck. Unbeknownst to Batman though, the Joker exhaled a toxin contained in his heart, which infected anyone close to him if he died. In this case, it was Batman. This caused him to snap and basically become the new Joker, taking over Earth 32 and later on, gaining cosmic power. Yeah, cosmic power. Joker. But also Batman. No thanks. And finally, in at number 1, Death of the Family. When the Joker became obsessed over destroying the Bat family, he decided to arrange for his face to be surgically removed. According to the Joker, he did this to symbolize that even without his mask, he was still the Joker, whereas Batman, Robin, and Batgirl's identities were only mask deep. To see this through, Joker arranged for the serial killer known as the Dollmaker to remove his face surgically in Arkham Asylum. The Dollmaker sent his, son to do the procedure though, only for the Joker to kill him by tearing out his throat with his teeth. Dollmaker later went on to actually remove his face since Joker refused to do it any other way, but the two actually arranged to celebrate his rebirth before leaving the clown's face on the cell wall for Batman to find. Joker would later use straps, clips, and pins to retrofit the flesh back onto his face in a form of mask, which he wore over his now exposed tendons, hiding the way he looked, because honestly that might have been a little too much. Joker would also remain in this mask for the remainder of his plan to destroy the Bat Family, a mission which ended in a dinner party in the Batcave. And I think it's fairly obvious why this is number 1. Even without cosmic power, a man getting his face removed only to turn it into a mask to wear it again? No thank you. Not to mention that this is also the face that Joker's daughter ends up wearing, I'm pretty sure. So, no.
Number 10, DCAU. In the main animated universe known as the DCAU, the DC Animated Universe, Poison Ivy isn't quite as powerful as her comic book counterpart. She doesn't have the power to manipulate plants, but you know what's cool about her? She doesn't really need that. Here, Pamela actually relies on her smarts to get stuff done typically. She often makes her own poisons, toxins, and serums using plants, using her skills as a genius chemist and botanist to do so. Aside from that, Poison Ivy also is known for having an immunity to all poisons and toxins, even Joker gas. Ivy doesn't just have brains and toxic immunity though. She also has some bronze in this reality. This version of Ivy is also a skilled gymnast and comes armed with a wrist-mounted crossbow, which she occasionally uses. Later on, she also develops pheromones, which she often uses to make men do her bidding. A quite literal femme fatale. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, you should go check out our newest channel, Most Amazing Top 10 Anime. And when you head on over there, hit subscribe and let them know that Amanda sent you. Number 9, Gotham by Gaslight. Even the old-timey Victorian version of Ivy is pretty cool. Gotham by Gaslight is a series and alternate Earth where Batman actually hunts Jack the Ripper in Gotham City. It is set in the 19th century, turn of the century sort of era. Here, Pamela Isley is also a baddie. She ends up appearing in Convergence Shazam issue number 2 instead of the main Gotham by Gaslight story. Here she is revealed to be one of the rogues of Batman from the Gotham by Gaslight reality. We also learn that she does in fact still have chlorokinesis powers, which I think is pretty neat. It should also be noted that there is in fact a Batman Gotham by Gaslight animated film as well, but for this point we're focusing on the version of the reality from the comics. So not to be confused with the animated film. Number 8, Arrowverse. I'm not sure if we are still calling it that or if we're calling it the CW verse at this point, but you know what I'm talking about here. Poison Ivy is a character who actually appears in the Batwoman series, first being mentioned in episode 13 of the second season, I'll Give You a Clue, and first appearing in the 8th episode of the third season of the series, Trust Destiny. She is portrayed by Bridget Riga in the show, and like her comic book counterpart, has chlorokinesis powers which allow her to command, create, and manipulate plant life. Ivy here, however, does not have pheromone powers, but instead hypnotism powers, which seemingly allow her to control those who lock eyes with her. However, even this power, like Ivy's pheromone powers in the comics, can be thwarted.
And at 7, Emperor Joker. Emperor Joker was the form the Joker took after tricking Mr. Mxyzptlk into donating 99.99% of his powers to the Joker. He gave him 99.99% of his powers accidentally. As a direct result, he became near omnipotent and created a hellish world in his own image. At some point, the imp from the 5th dimension, Mr. Mxyzptlk, attempted to see what a member of the regular realm would do with his power and selected the Joker. He intended on only donating 1% of his power to the Joker, but the Mad Clown tricked him into revealing his true name and thus ended up gaining 99.99% of the powers, and proceeded to transform existence within 69 seconds. Nice. Into a realm made in his own image, which was a twisted caricature, and with everyone stuck in a loop. Emperor Joker continually tortured and killed Batman every single day, only to bring him back to life and do it all over again. As could be expected, Emperor Joker took pride in these particular killings due to the unique relationship the two characters continued to share. Although this relationship is also the Joker's undoing, since he was still defined by being the Batman's antagonist, and he was beaten by a dog of all things. Okay, well, it was Superman as a dog, but still. Joker with near absolute power? No thanks. And at 6, Batman Two-Faces. Batman Two-Faces is the DC equivalent to the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde story, where ironically, Harvey Dent, also known as Two-Face, isn't the one with the Hyde affliction, but rather Batman himself is. It's the year 1886. Bruce Wayne is organizing a gala to exhibit the Twilight Orchid, a rare flower with unique characteristics. During the day, the flower is exquisitely colored and perfumed and attracts a large amount of insects. At night, however, it turns into a weed, attracting only pests. I know a few people like that. Miss Pamela Isley, Bruce Wayne, Commissioner Gordon, and many of Gotham's finest attend the gala where Two-Face storms in and steals the flower. Bruce reveals that he had hoped to actually create a potion derived from the flower, which was retrieved from Miss Isley's dead hands. A potion which would cure Two-Face from his dual personality. Finalizing the potion, Bruce tests it on himself. He suddenly develops superhuman strength, agility, and a new sense of courage and purpose. He puts together a costume and sets off to battle crime on Two-Face's terms. However, this potion didn't only give him powers, it gave him another personality. The personality of the Joker. Yeah, that's right. In Batman Two-Faces, Bruce Wayne is the Joker, which is pretty frightening for sure. Halfway through into number 5, Batman Bloodstorm. At one point, Gotham City was attacked by a group of vampires led by Dracula. However, the vampires were defeated by Batman, who would become part vampire in the struggle. The Joker later lured the surviving vampires out of their underground lair and convinced them to allow him to be their new leader. The vampires accepted, and the Joker appointed a vampire named Creech to be his second in command. The Joker and his new gang then set out to conquer Gotham's underworld. Their first target was Cardona. The vampires ambushed Cardona and his thugs at their hideout, drank their blood, and transformed them into Night Stalkers like themselves. But yeah, you heard that right. The Joker of Earth 43 is Batman's archenemy, and a non-vampire leading a pack of vampires through fear. The ability to lead a group of vampires through fear is absolutely nuts, because like in every incarnation, vampires aren't really afraid of anything, aside from maybe other vampires or like steaks. Like nice medium steaks. That was a bad joke. You know what I mean, right? Like this is, how crazy is this version of the Joker to try to do that? I don't know. Like holy damn, or I guess unholy damn. Let's go on. And at 4, Dark Knight Returns. Like most incarnations, this Joker is a psychopathic mass murderer who is Batman's archenemy. Following Batman's retirement though, he gets confined to Arkham Asylum and falls into a catatonic state. But when Batman returns 10 years later, he comes back as well for a final showdown with the Dark Knight. It's unknown how he knows that he's back, but he just wakes up. The final showdown between the two ends in the Tunnel of Love, in which Joker hysterically stabs Batman in the stomach several times. But mid-stab, Batman instinctively breaks the Joker's neck just enough to paralyze him, but not kill him. Joker encourages Batman to finish him off, but Batman won't do it. So the Joker then finally says, "See you in hell," before, in a last act of revenge against his enemy, twists his own neck just far enough to kill himself, and framing his enemy for his own murder. Isn't that wonderful? That's freaking nuts. Who snaps their own neck to frame a guy? Okay? This is one of the freakiest scenes in all of comics. Like, what the living hell?
Number 3, Lady of the Forest. It's possible that this version of Ivy is even more powerful than she seems in the comics. She hails from the reality belonging to the Dark Knights of Steel series, which sets up the DC universe in a more medieval and fantasy-based setting. Here Ivy is known as the Lady of the Forest, protecting Hob Forest out of love for the court jester Harley Quinn. While her power is really shown to only have reach in the forest in the series, it is more magic-based in this reality, and it could potentially reach further than that. It could be just Ivy doesn't want to reach further than that. She helps the House of L, but she doesn't actually do it out of love for them, but only out of love for Harley. Number 2, Harley Quinn animated series. One of the most powerful versions of Ivy when it comes down to it is from the Harley Quinn animated series. While a humorous and comical show filled with zany antics and tons of jokes, Ivy's power is not to be laughed at here. In fact, it seems as though a few different versions of the character were combined together to give us this powerhouse version that ends up becoming Harley Quinn's best friend and later her girlfriend. Here Ivy has powers of chlorokinesis and pheromone control. Although her pheromone powers actually also cause her victims to transform into trees and eventually die. Which could be a plus, could be a minus, depending on how you see that. Much darker than the comics for sure. Poison Ivy here can also heal from pretty much anything, even seemingly coming back from the dead, so long as she's buried in fresh soil, which seems to allow her to regenerate, which is pretty cool. Number 1, Prime Earth. Technically, this version of Poison Ivy isn't a variant because she's the main continuity version from the comics, who we now consider to be the Prime version, but she's really powerful, and I'd be remiss if I did not mention her on this list. So we're gonna talk about her. She's making my cut anyway. You're just gonna have to deal with it because she's too good for me to not talk about her. The current main continuity version of Poison Ivy is similar to her New Earth counterpart, but her power levels are on a different scale. She was never able to stick to walls, sadly though. Yeah, that was the thing that New Earth Ivy could do pre-Crisis, which was pretty weird, but also kinda interesting. This version of Ivy was powerful enough to at one point use her abilities to control all of the people of the world through the greens that they ate. What's even more crazy is she was actually talked out of ruling the world, as that was really the only way to defeat her at that point. That's how powerful she was. She had such immense control over supremely powerful beings as well, like Superman. This version of Ivy can also connect to other plants through the green, allowing her to perceive many different places around the world through the shared consciousness of plant life. And because she is connected to the green, she can never really die either, like her Harley Quinn animated series counterpart. Kinda like Swamp Thing as well, she can kind of always come back because she kind of exists in plant life, you know what I mean?
Number 5. William Cobb, the Talon. He made his comic book debut in 2011 back in Batman Volume 2, Issue 2, and the Talon is an assassin for the Court of Owls, who claims to have killed several Wayne family members, including Bruce Wayne's great-great-grandfather, Alan Wayne. Not a bad resume. He began his early days juggling baseballs on the street just to get by, and after his father had passed away tragically while building a bridge for Cameron Kane, he began his early days juggling baseballs on the street just to get by, after his father had passed away tragically while building a bridge for Cameron Kane. So he would earn some money and then sneak it into his mother's purse. What a gem. And then one day somebody was watching his act and then got pickpocketed. So William Cobb noticed and hucked one of these baseballs at him, saving the day. The man offered him a job at a circus as a thank you. So he started using knives instead of baseballs to amp up the act, keep it fresh, and eventually met his love Amelia back when he returned to Gotham. Now he was a celebrity though. Amelia's father didn't like the two in love, so he told William to beat it. Amelia at this time was actually pregnant. Ruh-roh. So Cobb joined the Court of Owls and became one of the Talons, and went back to Amelia's house to kidnap his own son. His son ends up becoming the Gray Son of Gotham, John Grayson's father. Number 4. Oblivion. Making his first appearance in Green Lantern New Guardians Annual Issue 2 back in 2014, Oblivion is made of Kyle Rayner's rage, fear, and anxiety. He's the physical form of all of those traits and even believes himself to be Kyle Rayner. He stayed in his apartment and even tricked Carol into thinking that he was the real deal. So he has powers that allow him to shapeshift, teleport, he can project vast amounts of energy that match a white lantern, and he can also create illusions of people and objects. So one day Oblivion teleported Carol and himself to Arizona, where he used his powers to alter all the people in the buildings there. He's kind of annoying like that,
Number 3. Shang-Chi from the MCU. Shang-Chi first appeared in the comics back in the 70s, but it took him 13 years to make his way into the MCU from when it started way back in 2008. Simu Liu is the actor to take up the role of this new hero in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Shang-Chi is introduced in his own self-titled feature film Shang-Chi and the Legend of Ten Rings, where no major plot spoilers here, no major plot spoilers, we learn that he is a man running from the past, living under the alias of Sean in the United States, after escaping the supposed wrath of his father, criminal overlord Wen Wu. We follow him on his journey as he is suddenly recalled home, back to his family under mysterious circumstances, all while uncovering his family's story, history, and the legend of the Ten Rings. If you haven't seen Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings yet, I actually cannot recommend this movie more. I think it actually may have become one of my all-time favorite films, both within and without the MCU. That is just how great it is. I cannot praise it enough. If you haven't seen it yet, pause this video, go watch it, and then come back. That's how good it is. You gotta go right now. Number 2, Venom. That's right, there is a new Venom in town. This one is the son of Eddie Brock and his ex-wife Anne Wang. His name is Dylan Brock. Dylan's existence at first was a shock to Eddie, and it also seemed as though Venom was involved in his genetic creation as well, being that Venom was bonded to Eddie at the time of Dylan's conception. Dylan and Eddie both, however, managed to survive past the crazy summer event that was absolute carnage, where he resurrected Cletus Cassidy as a Grendel symbiote version of Carnage, threatened to awaken the god of symbiotes, Null, who would threaten the entire Earth. While Eddie did manage to save his son Dylan, he could not avoid waking Null, who then arrived on Earth during another summer event, Marvel's King in Black event. With Null defeated, Eddie took his place as the god and ruler of symbiotes, and the Venom symbiote was tasked with keeping an eye on Dylan. Dylan has since bonded with the Venom symbiote, and together the two are now the new Venom. So you can enjoy that. Kids grow up so fast in comics. They don't get to be kids for very long, do they? Number 1, Kang the Conqueror from the MCU. Kang is a character that I really never would have expected to see in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's happened, and I gotta say, I'm like weirdly hyped about it. Kang made his first appearance in the season 1 finale of Marvel's streaming series Loki, where he was played by Jonathan Majors. We already knew to expect Jonathan Majors as the character, but didn't anticipate him to show up so early in that role, instead expecting him to arrive in the MCU in Ant-Man and the Wasp's film Quantumania, where he was believed to be the major villain. It turns out, however, that there isn't just one Kang, but infinite Kangs across the multiverse. One of these Kangs was the one behind the Time Variance Authority, or the TVA, it turns out, but now that it has been toppled, this has allowed multiple realities with other, possibly even more sinister, powerful, and ruthless Kangs to spring up. So get ready for some Kang mania, it sounds like. Also, we need a Kang movie, because I want Quantumania and I want like Kang Mania to also be a movie now.
Number 10, Wither. Kevin Ford, or better known as Wither, was a former student of Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. He's a mutant with the power of organic decay, which means basically when he touched any form of organic matter, it would break down the binding forces between the molecules and cause whatever he's touching to wither away. I get his name now. He wasn't really all that great at controlling it though. When he first arrived at the school, he was a bit of a loner, but he eventually made some friends. He was especially close with Laurie Collins, also known as Wallflower. Years later, during the House of M storyline, he touched Laurie's arm and accidentally ended up crippling her. He then decided to run away and was recruited by Selene to fight against the X-Men. Number 9, Bishop. Lucas Bishop, or better known as just Bishop, has a very, very interesting story. You see, his mission was to travel back and to find a traitor in the X-Men and stop this terrible future that he was living in. Pretty straightforward, right? Well, not exactly. After Scarlet Witch wiped out a ton of the mutant population, Hope Summers appeared, and everyone saw her as some sort of mutant messiah. Bishop then realizes that she is partially responsible for the terrible future that he lives in and will stop at nothing to kill her. He even ends up betraying the X-Men, which in turn makes him realize that he is the traitor that he was looking for all along. And instead of killing Hope, he ends up killing Cable. And now, in the future, he is known as a villain. That's pretty crazy. And really messed up. Number 8, Colossus. Colossus is generally seen as a really nice guy. I mean, look how he's portrayed in the Deadpool films. People just absolutely love him. But unfortunately, he has turned to the dark side. He ended up suffering a brain injury, and then shortly after, he lost his sister to something known as the Legacy Virus, which took the lives of a lot of mutants. Because of this, he ends up siding with Magneto for a little while and goes against the X-Men. But he does eventually return to the side of good. But he was evil, which is why he is on this list.
Number 7, Zhu Xialing from the MCU. Zhu Xialing is the sister of Shang-Chi, who appears in his self-titled feature film. We learned that despite the fact that her father never felt it would be appropriate to train her, at night she would practice in secret, watching his elite soldiers, known as the Ten Rings, during the day, and attempting to teach herself their movements during the night. Like her brother Shang-Chi, she also became a woman on the run. However, for Xialing, instead of running from her potential destiny, she attempts to seize for herself the role she feels was denied to her growing up. It's likely that the Shang-Chi film won't be the last that we'll see of this new Marvel Cinematic Universe character, and that she won't necessarily be quite as black and white as some of the other Marvel characters that we've come to know, which I'm so ready for. I love when characters have so much depth. Number 6. Black Winter. Black Winter is going to be a huge big bad that will be coming our way eventually in the comics. Likely much later on, like we're talking a few years away. Black Winter isn't actually a completely new character, but has recently been reinvented in terms of their part as one of the biggest bads ever faced in the comics. Black Winter actually first appeared under the name the Creeping Plague back in the 60s in Thor issue 169. But more recently in 2019, the entity appeared under a new name in Silver Surfer Black issue number 4, becoming known as Black Winter. The entity can take on any shape or form it pleases and is responsible for ending Galactus' home universe. The Black Winter will also likely be the way the current Marvel universe ends. While Thor and Galactus teamed up in the beginning of the current Thor run, Volume 6, Donny Cates' run, to destroy the Black Winter, Thor really only succeeded in temporarily defeating the entity, leaving Thor with visions of a bleak end to come, which includes the return of Thanos. Alright friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to learn about more of the newest characters that we've seen in the last year or two, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. There's lots of new characters. There's lots more people I want to talk to you about, so please give it a thumbs up. Share it. Get it the views so I can give you the video. Number 5. Yelena Belova from the MCU. Yelena Belova is like the little sister of Black Widow in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Though, to be clear, she isn't blood related to Natasha. Or not that we know of anyways. It turns out both Yelena and Natasha were part of a team of undercover Russian operatives and spies who are posing as an all-American family as their cover. They were in the US to gain important scientific intel when they were kids that the head of the Red Room, Dreykov, wanted to ultimately help expand and grow his empire. Yelena was posing as Natasha's little sister when they were undercover. Even after Black Widow became an Avenger and thought that she had actually taken down the Red Room, it was revealed that Yelena actually remained a spy and operative for the secret organization due to the fact that earlier on, Black Widow and Hawkeye had actually failed to complete that mission to destroy the organization in Budapest. Yelena will likely be taking over and becoming a sort of White Widow, if you will, in the MCU. At least that's what I think we're gonna know her as. Working on a team that Contessa Valentina Allegra de la Fontaine is putting together. In the comics, Yelena is a bit of a different character. She is a rival of Black Widow's who is sometimes an ally and sometimes a foe, depending on the circumstances. And as far as I know, she's never worn quite as cool of a vest as her MCU counterpart, though she was a model at one point. That was a thing that happened. Number 4. Genesis. Genesis is a pretty important character who apparently has always existed, but who we never really knew about. Ooh, mysteries. She made her first full appearance in the 2019 run of X-Men back in issue 12. We would learn that she is the wife of Apocalypse, who was long ago lost to her husband, who ended up leaving another mutant island nation known as Arakko. The other half, it turns out, of Krakoa. Genesis is a strong warrior and an all-around badass, basically pretty much exactly what you'd expect Apocalypse's wife to be. She also happens to be a mother, as it turns out that Apocalypse and Genesis together had a whole family of strong, also badass mutant children. Currently, Genesis and Apocalypse are back together and are likely taking a little off-panel vacation, as we haven't really seen them in a little while, so I hope they're enjoying themselves. Hope they're getting a time to reconnect, because they've been apart for so long.
Number 3. Angel. Warren Worthington III is a mutant, well, with, you guessed it, wings. He's a proud member of the X-Men, but ended up becoming their enemy, Archangel. He becomes one of Apocalypse's 4 horsemen. He did eventually break free from Apocalypse, but the whole encounter really just changed him going forward. Warren was never really the same after that. He has consistently wavered between good and evil, sometimes going back and referring to himself as Angel, and then other times becoming bad and becoming Archangel. Number 2. Wolverine. Wolverine becoming bad isn't really a new thing. I mean, there have been multiple instances in the comics where Wolverine has become evil. During the Age of Apocalypse storyline, where he was one of Apocalypse's 4 horsemen, or the time where his body was taken over by a demon and he became Hellverine and caused all sorts of mayhem, or there's even the time where he became a vampire. He also even murdered a kid in the Ultimate Universe. It's just, the list goes on and on. But at the same time, that doesn't take away from how iconic Logan is. He's just this amazing hero and will always stay that way, regardless, if he turns evil sometimes. Number 1. Jean Grey. This is probably one of, if not the most famous story in X-Men history, the Dark Phoenix Saga. Fans adore it. It was this massive, action-packed, heartbreaking event. I mean, it's so popular that they've even tried to make it into 2 movies. Fans weren't really crazy about them, but the fact that it was adapted twice really shows you how popular it is. Jean Grey becomes Dark Phoenix after harnessing the power of the Phoenix Force, one of the most powerful things in the whole Marvel Universe. This tragic tale also does not have a happy ending. I mean, on the one hand, Jean managed to become herself again, but in order for her to save everyone, she had to die, which had massive ramifications on the rest of the team going forward.